We provide maritime intelligence. So what is that? That's monitoring things in the ocean thousands of kilometers from shore using things like drones, helicopters, sonar, radar, etc.
What does deployment actually look like in your environment?
So because we deploy thousands of miles from shore, we actually have to send equipment to the central and western Pacific. So those are all tiny islands like Micronesia, Kiribati, Solomon Islands. So it's a challenge to get there unless you own your own private jet.
So then who are your customers? Who uses these?
So our first customer set are actually commercial tuna vessels. So the current technology they use is helicopters. They have helipads on the ships. They fly up and with their bare eyes just search for fish around the ocean. And so we're trying to replace that with modern technology, using AI, using drones to replace the helicopters.
So tuna fishing vessels, that's very interesting. How do you fit into their operational flow?
So the ocean is huge, right? 70% of the earth is water. Can you imagine that's like finding a needle in a haystack the size of the United States? Okay, so they use helicopters right now and they just fly around searching. And the fish actually swim at the top. So you can see them swimming around in huge schools. And we're talking like hundreds, not thousands of tons of tuna. And so a helicopter will fly around and spot the tuna and radio back, just using a handheld radio, and tell the ship where to go. And so this is both very expensive. A helicopter costs millions of dollars, and it consumes a lot of fuel. A commercial tuna vessel consumes about 2 kilograms of CO2 per 1 kilogram of fish caught. So it is a lot.
Yeah. So you help the helicopter or you replace the helicopter?
We augment the helicopter. So they still need the helicopter to do certain functions. For example, if there's an emergency, fly someone off. But a helicopter can only go in one direction. A drone can go in many directions, and at the same time, you can launch many of them from a ship. Helicopters are huge, so you can't put too many on a ship.
So why do you think this works in maritime when so many physical systems struggle to deploy in the real world today?
So most people, when they think of physical AI, they think of Waymo, self-driving cars, you have the Teslas. But the big issue with that are edge cases, right? If your car crashes 1% of the time, that's still not good enough because lives are at stake. A more successful, people don't really think of as physical AI, is a Roomba or a home vacuum, right? Those are actually AI powered, but when it crashes, it just hits your wall or goes down the stairs, so it's not really a danger. When you operate in the ocean, there's no place. If the drone falls out of the sky, you're not gonna hurt anyone. There's no obstructions like trees or power lines, so it's a lot safer. And then the radio waves can go a lot faster. Every home in Taiwan has 5G, has Wi-Fi, and that interferes with communications. So the ocean is a great place to test.
I see. What actually changes for your users when they adopt your system?
Well, the biggest thing is savings of cost,
Okay.
right? A helicopter is about $2 million. You need a pilot. You need a mechanic to make sure it works every day. You need a guy who's looking for fish. Our system solves all that by just using a drone. The person stays on the ship. Every year, there are helicopter accidents where the helicopter crashes into the sea, crashes into the ship. And so safety, price, and then also saving fuel. Fuel is a huge issue, especially with what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So every gallon counts.
Yeah. So, so what do you think is something that people commonly misunderstand about physical AI today? You mentioned, even everyday household appliances are actually physical AI and the safety element. What else?
Yeah, so what is physical AI? Crucially, it's using some sort of sensor to sense the world, doing some sort of thought process, and then doing an output, right? Your vacuum sees a wall, it decides to turn direction and look for more space to vacuum. Right now, there's a lot of robots being used for, let's say, auto manufacturing or automation. They have robots making pizzas, making burgers. The difficulty is, yes, you reduce labor, but your engineer that maintains these robots costs more than an army of minimum wage workers. And so the challenge right now is it's still very expensive to maintain. The robots still are kind of at a toddler stage. But every year, the technology gets better and cheaper.
Okay, then so from a business standpoint, what kind of impacts are you seeing, short term and long term?
Well, short term, you're able to just automate things that are dangerous, right? Our example is the commercial fishing. You can automate things in factories, lifting heavy equipment. Right now, one of the use cases is in construction because you have a very boxed off, a sandbox to operate equipment. People are wearing hard hats. You don't have civilians walking around. There's a company called Zipline. It deploys drones to deliver blood in Africa. There's no roads, terrible infrastructure, not a lot of things to hit. And so those cases where the safety is not as much as a concern, those are perfect applications.
Okay. So maritime, back to that environment, is also a strategic environment. Do you see security or defense use cases becoming a significant part of this space?
Oh, very much so. So we chose commercial tuna because it's lucrative. They have high cost, which means there's a lot of room to negotiate fees. But our system can be used to surveil anything. So that could be pirates. So for example, Evergreen, huge company in Taiwan, they send out cargo ships. They see a blip on the radar. They have no idea what that is. Is it another cargo ship? Is it a pirate? Is it a foreign military? They have no idea. With a drone on every ship, they can fly it up 50, 100 kilometers away and just take a look if it's an adversary or it's no big deal. So that's one application. If you look at Strait of Hormuz, things happening right now, it's much, it's very useful to have an eye in the sky. There is satellite, but satellite is not real time.
So this is sort of closer to situational type of surveillance that you're talking about.
Exactly.
So what other dual uses can you share with us? I know that you were talking about commercial fishing and we're going all the way to defense. Are there any in-between type of usages that we can think about, using drones? And you mentioned, for example, blood delivery.
Cargo ships is a big one.
Okay.
Oil tankers. Anything in the ocean where you're in the middle of nowhere, it's the Wild West, there's no police, there's no Coast Guard, is a great opportunity to use drones.
Okay. And, I imagine that something so new, there are obviously going to be some limitations and strains. Can you share with us, where do you see it might have breaks or limitations? What are those that, in terms of the developmental stage?
Well, specifically for drones, AI-powered drones, is the supply chain. It's a huge problem. Taiwan is pushing hard. The West is pushing hard at a non-red supply chain. But the fact of the matter is, 90% of the supply chain comes from China. And even the raw materials, you're talking about neodymium magnets, 90% come from China. Batteries, most of them come from China. They have scale and they have cheap prices. And so when you combine all those factors, we have great engineers in Taiwan. We make semiconductors. Making a drone is not like making semiconductors, but we have a great supply chain for semiconductors. When a auto manufacturer like Ford goes to a country, they bring all their suppliers. They're not in a vacuum.
Right.
Right. In Taiwan, we have to wait a long time to get supplies. While they're building drones in China, you're talking about 1 hour, 2 hours for delivery of components. So it is a big delta, and hopefully there's a lot of action, like the United States Senate has a bill up, Senate Bill 4259, I believe, Blue Skies Taiwan Act, which is just to make Taiwan a strategic supplier of drone components and drones to the United States. Taiwan can build capacity. We have huge electronics manufacturers, but the key is we need orders. Otherwise, what is the profit motive for these companies? Once we have orders, we can scale.
I see. Well, so I'm curious, but obviously you chose to build from Taiwan. So share with us, what was the motivation behind that decision? How does it shape your ability to develop and deploy these systems? And I guess you're not looking at just the Taiwan market, whether you're looking at regional or global. What is your positioning?
Well, my co-founder is actually a Taiwanese-American, former US Air Force drone operator.
Okay.
So our initial motivation, we concocted this idea to do a startup back in 2022. If you remember, at the time, there was a lot of commotion going on in the Taiwan Strait. Nancy Pelosi flew over. There's a lot of threats happening.
Yeah.
And the government decided to put a lot of effort into Taiwan. But what we didn't see a lot of was experienced drone operators in Taiwan. So my partner being a drone operator with vast experience in South Korea, Germany, he did operations in Syria, Libya. He felt like he could really support Taiwan's efforts with his experience. So that's one of the reasons we chose Taiwan. And then engineering talent. Taiwan has great engineering talent.
I think the ecosystem, the platforms here is what a lot of entrepreneurs talk about of why they want to build out here. Can you share an example of a real world scenario where your system is creating clear value in addition to the tuna commercial fishing for your clients?
Right now, we focus on commercial fishing.
Okay.
But what we do envision in the future was what I had mentioned earlier, is being able to see things by video rather than just seeing a radar blip or sonar blip. Those aren't images, those are just shapes. And so when you're able to see things in real time, you can make split-second decisions. So both on the commercial side, for example, an iceberg, right? That's a very famous use case of seeing things is very helpful. Titanic, that's still an issue today. We've talked to krill fisheries.
Yeah.
Iceberg's still a danger today. So those types of things, just being able to see far ahead, not like 1 or 2 kilometers, but dozens, if not 100 kilometers away from your ship.
Sounds like there's a lot more potential.